Elena Moore didn't make a scene. She didn't raise her voice, nor did she frown in protest. She simply stood there, quiet, composed, and unshaken, amidst a sea of sharp suits and designer luggage in Cleargate Airport's first-class lounge. Her posture was calm, her hands resting lightly on the handle of her navy suitcase, her soft gray sweater blending gently with the muted tones of the room. But within minutes, someone had called security. Her only crime was daring to exist as a black woman in a space many silently believed she didn't belong. Eyes darted toward her. An employee whispered behind a manicured hand. A manager's brow arched ever so slightly. And somewhere, hidden from sight, a silent alarm had been pressed. Perhaps Elena knew. Perhaps she didn't. Regardless, she stood her ground, still and steady as stone. When two uniformed security officers approached, their movements brisk and authoritative, the entire lounge seemed to lean in with subtle anticipation. Their hands hovered near their radios. Their gazes sharpened as they closed the distance. But what none of them realized was that in Elena's quiet, poised hand, her phone shimmered softly. Within seconds, the entire narrative of that moment, the assumptions, the quiet disdain, the unspoken exclusion, was about to unravel. This wasn't merely about race. It was about a system colliding with the uncomfortable truth of its own blind prejudice. The VIP boarding zone breathed with its own rhythm, a controlled, unspoken exclusivity, as though velvet ropes had been invisibly drawn around it. Elena stood alone in the priority line, her appearance understated and modest. Her navy suitcase was worn but clean, her gray turtleneck draped neatly across her frame. Her shoes were simple leather, polished but unremarkable. In contrast, the lounge shimmered with the soft rustle of tailored suits, the glint of gold jewelry, and the faint perfume of wealth. Elena's simplicity cut through the extravagance like a hairline cracking glass. Patricia Wexler, the senior aviation supervisor, took notice immediately. A stout woman with flushed cheeks squeezed into a tailored navy blazer, Patricia's gaze fixed on Elena. No sweeping scan of the room, just her. Patricia's trained eye flicked methodically, suitcase, shoes, phone, searching for a reason to dismiss her. There was nothing explicitly out of place, and yet to Patricia, nothing about Elena matched her internal picture of a first-class passenger. Her jaw clenched. With a practiced motion, Patricia pressed the radio on her wrist. Delta 7, her voice crackled, calm and clipped. Check the subject at the end of the priority line. Possible wrong zone entry. It sounded procedural, like she was reporting a stray bag left unattended. Yet the target was clear. Elena stepped forward, her footsteps soft against the polished floor. She said nothing, offered no explanation. She simply extended her phone to Patricia. Her e-ticket gleamed brightly on the screen. First class, Zone 1. Patricia gave the screen the briefest glance before dismissing it altogether. Without scanning, without a second check, she spoke coolly. You might be in the wrong line. Economy's over there. Her tone was sharp, her words void of courtesy. Elena didn't flinch. She raised her gaze, meeting Patricia's eyes with quiet steel. I know exactly where I'm standing, she replied, her voice measured and unwavering. Patricia's lips curled into a thin, brittle smile. Without further argument, she signaled subtly to a nearby staffer, an unspoken order to remove the woman. And yet, Elena didn't move. Instead, she lowered her eyes back to her screen. Beneath the standard ticket details sat a small code, one known only to elite strategic members of the Adverlink group. What Patricia didn't realize was that Elena Moore wasn't just another traveler. The ticket in Elena's hand had been issued by the Executive Command Office, the highest echelon of corporate decision-making, reserved only for board-level executives. In fact, just the day before, Elena had personally signed the $3.8 billion acquisition deal that had saved Grand Sky Airlines. the very airline they were standing in. Without her signature, this airport lounge wouldn't even exist under its current banner. Yet here she stood, silently weighed and dismissed as though she were invisible. Moments later, Elena was escorted to a small sterile room labeled Security Courtesy Room, Internal Use Only. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. A cold metal table sat in the center, flanked by two uniformed guards. "Full name?" one asked briskly. "Elena Moore." "Destination?" "Seattle." "Business flight?" "Purpose of travel?" "I'm conducting an internal review of a strategic partner." Her answers were crisp, precise, devoid of embellishment. As the male officer jotted down notes, his partner rifled through her tote bag, unearthing a laptop, a leather notebook, and a sealed envelope bearing the embossed Adverlink crest in crimson wax. "What's this?" the guard asked. "Confidential work documents," Elena replied coolly. "May we open it?" Her voice, still soft, now carried an unmistakable edge. "If you intend to read that, you'll need a lawyer and a court order." The officers hesitated. The air in the room shifted. Elena calmly retrieved the envelope, replaced it in her bag, and zipped it shut. "If this is random, log it," she said evenly. "If it's targeted, I expect the request in writing." Back in the control room, Patricia sat reclined, snacking idly as she smirked at the surveillance feed. What she didn't know was that a separate, unlinked camera, installed by Adverlink's Internal Affairs Division, had recorded every second of the interaction, from the first glance in the lounge to the humiliating search. 20 minutes later, Elena exited the security room holding a white slip. "No violation verified." She didn't glance back. Her stride was steady, measured, and silent as she walked toward the boarding gate. Patricia stood nearby but said nothing. No apology crossed her lips. Elena presented her ticket to the gate agent. A soft beep. Valid. She stepped onto the aircraft. First class welcomed her with hushed elegance. Cream leather seats, crystal glasses glinting softly. Yet the weight of silent judgment followed her still. At seat 1C, Elena stowed her luggage. Beside her in 1A sat a man in his 50s, cloaked in an expensive tailored suit. His eyes flicked to her as she settled into her seat, his expression unreadable, but telling. Moments later, Kelly Wexler, the chief flight attendant and Patricia's cousin, appeared, gliding smoothly down the aisle, distributing hot towels and champagne. When she reached Elena's row, her pace faltered. The tray shifted subtly. No towel, no champagne, not even a glance. Elena simply looked up, memorizing yet another face. As she fastened her belt, the man beside her leaned back slightly, a thin smirk curling on his lips. His voice drifted low, sharp as glass. "Guess nowadays, anyone with money can squeeze in here." Elena turned her gaze forward, her face serene and unreadable. Because she knew, the next time she walked into a boardroom, some of these same faces would have to answer to her. Kelly Wexler emerged once more. This time she stood firmly in front of seat 1C. She leaned forward ever so slightly, her voice low, smooth, but edged with the firmness of an order. "Pardon me, ma'am," she said. "We're going to need you to move to the back row. There's been a last-minute revision in the front cabin's weight balance." Elena didn't lift her head. Her voice rose soft but razor-sharp, each syllable precise, undeniable, cutting clean through the air. "Are you suggesting I weigh more than every other passenger here?" Kelly blinked, almost imperceptibly, her composure momentarily faltering before her polished mask slid effortlessly back into place. "This isn't personal," she responded coolly. "We're simply adhering to safety guidelines. Your understanding is valued." "I see," Elena answered, her tone poised, controlled. "And I'm following standard procedural protocol as well. So I'll repeat, why am I the only passenger being told to relocate?" Kelly inclined her head, barely a nod, but her stance remained unyielding. We require you to change seats. We are not permitted to share further details. The atmosphere thickened, like a velvet curtain slowly drawing closed. Nearby travelers subtly lifted their eyes, pretending to skim magazines and in-flight menus, but their gazes settled firmly on the unfolding scene. Elena locked eyes with Kelly, not in defiance, but with the quiet clarity of someone making an irrevocable point. She inhaled steadily, reached into her handbag, retrieved her phone, opened an encrypted internal app, and with swift precision tapped a single sentence. Trial concluded. Transmit file code to corporate. Send nothing more. Kelly hadn't yet fully comprehended what had transpired, but something in Elena's steady gaze prompted her to instinctively take a cautious step backward. Elena placed the phone on her tray table, lifted her eyes once more, and spoke evenly. If this airline truly believes it has a weight distribution issue, perhaps it's not the passengers who need to be shifted. Her smile was subtle but profound, the kind of smile that lingers like a knot in the throat. Kelly froze. Words abandoned her. Without another sound, she pivoted sharply and disappeared into the galley. Meanwhile, 1,000 miles distant at Advalink Group's central headquarters, a digital transmission decrypted itself silently. Level 2 trial complete. Initiate emergency personnel review. And at that precise moment, no soul aboard that aircraft realized the woman they had attempted to displace was the very individual with the authority to determine who would be allowed a seat on any future flight. The aircraft touched down at exactly 5:34 p.m., right on schedule. As travelers rose to collect their belongings, Elena remained motionless, hands folded gently in her lap, eyes fixed ahead, as though her journey had not yet reached its end. And as she anticipated, it hadn't. Just 3 minutes after the cabin doors swung open, a crew member clad in a Navy uniform appeared at the front. He bent slightly, murmuring something discreetly to Chief Attendant Kelly. Kelly gave a terse nod and pivoted to face Elena. Ms. Moore, would you kindly come with us? There's a matter of security we need to clarify. No raised voices, no handcuffs, only glances, sharp and slicing, and hushed whispers that cracked like thin glass. Elena rose, nodded faintly, and without the slightest resistance was led to a private investigation room within Cleargate Airport. A compact conference space, dark wood table, sleek swivel chairs, an electronic display glowing quietly on the wall. Present in the room, the head of airport security, a representative from Grand Sky Airlines, Chief Attendant Kelly Wexler, and an observer from the Federal Aviation Administration. A printed document sat squarely on the table, titled Incident Report, Passenger Elena Moore, Disruptive Behavior and Noncompliance Following Seat Relocation Request for Safety Grounds. Elena took her seat without haste. She opened her handbag deliberately, while those assembled sat tense, bracing for an emotional outburst that never arrived. Instead, she retrieved a white envelope, sealed with a distinctive red wax insignia, the tri-branch emblem of Advalink Group. She laid it on the table, broke the seal with care, and slid out a single sheet of premium stock paper, its edges faintly dusted with silver. Then, with calm precision, Elena met every gaze in the room before she read aloud. Elena Moore, Senior Internal Audit Specialist, authorized by the Board of Mergers and Strategic Affairs, Advalink Group. I have conducted a covert assessment of Grand Sky Airlines customer engagement protocols. Audit Code 998-X. Scope: discriminatory practices among mid to senior personnel. The room stilled as if the very oxygen had thinned. No one shifted, no one breathed. The Grand Sky representative parted his lips, but no words found their way out. Elena laid the letter on the table, then calmly turned her phone toward the FAA observer. My entire random screening at the boarding gate was captured via a secondary surveillance network, including Supervisor Patricia Wexler's unwarranted directive to interfere. This domestic flight was part of a Level 3 operational field test. Today, Grand Sky Airlines has failed that evaluation. Kelly Wexler sat immobilized. The words she had spoken mid-flight, the forced seat reassignment, the hollow gestures and veiled disdain, now echoed back as an unspoken judgment. The FAA observer offered a subtle nod. The Grand Sky representative sagged into his chair, sweat stippling his temples. The head of security finally broke the silence. Ms. Moore, we deeply regret the mishandling you've endured. An internal inquiry will commence at once. I assure you, Elena raised her hand gently, her expression unwavering. I am not here seeking apologies. I am here to determine whether this system possesses the courage to face its own reflection. Within 45 minutes of that meeting's conclusion, an urgent communiqué was dispatched to Grand Sky's executive board. Suspend merger proceedings immediately. Internal ethics compliance audit failed. The woman they had attempted to escort from the priority line was the one empowered to strip Grand Sky from the National Financial Rescue roster entirely. By the following day, Grand Sky Airlines received an official notification from the National Financial Merger Board. The $3.8 billion relief proposal will be reconsidered upon successful completion of an ethics training program personally authored by the complainant. And once again, Elena Moore's name was absent from the headlines. It didn't need to be, because what she embodied resonated louder than any printed business card ever could. The internal review wrapped up in under 24 hours. Patricia Wexler was suspended indefinitely, her leadership title revoked. Kelly Wexler was permanently reassigned, barred from ever working in first class again. Every staff member implicated was mandated to submit full written accounts and complete a specialized ethics training course engineered by Elena herself. The media cycle moved on. Public fascination drifted toward fresher scandals, but for those involved, the resonance lingered. As for Elena, she granted no interviews, filed no lawsuits, sought no compensation. She sent just one message, posted quietly on the airline's internal bulletin board. I do not require an apology. I only hope they never inflict this on anyone else again. That Saturday afternoon, Cleargate International's East Corridor lay unusually hushed. Elena had just completed a private debrief. As she walked toward the terminal exit, by chance, she saw Patricia, the very woman who had once sought to shove her from the priority queue, who had smirked about reward points as though they defined human worth. Now hunched over the emergency assistance desk, sorting documents silently. Her attire had changed. No crisp executive suit, no gleaming name tag, just a creased powder blue shirt and shoulders drooping lower than Elena's own. Elena passed her by, but paused, not to gloat, not to demean, only to look, one last time, directly into the smallness of a person who had lost her own reflection. Patricia sensed it. Her head rose slowly. No smile, no words. Elena pressed her lips together softly, not in scorn, not in pity, only truth. You were right, she said gently. I don't look like someone who usually sits in first class, because I didn't come here to sit. I came to see how many people in this place still remember how to act like human beings. No further words. Elena turned away, leaving behind a silence no one dared fracture. No one had foreseen that the woman turned away at the boarding gate would be the one to make an entire institution lower its head. No yelling, no retaliation, just silence that stood its ground, and a gaze that never once wavered. Elena hadn't needed to win. She only needed to ensure they would never dare inflict the same injustice on the next person in line. Because justice isn't always about restoring everything that was broken. Sometimes It's about ensuring those who once walked over others are made to walk alone in quiet and with the heavy weight of regret. Have you ever been overlooked, silenced, or dismissed simply because of how you look? Have you ever chosen silence and wondered if that made you weak? Or perhaps that very silence became the strongest thing you've ever carried? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice might just inspire the next story we tell. If this story touched you, like, share, and subscribe. Because stories of courage, justice, and quiet humanity still deserve to be heard. I'm your storyteller, and I'll see you in the next story that inspires.